العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله فإنه حبل متين وعروة وثقى صلوات. Dear brothers and sisters in Iman, first of all I advise myself for taqwa, parhezgari and piety, and then I advise all of you for the same. We are in the month of Safar, and these 2 months of Muharram and Safar are the months in which we remember our Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wassalam, and his sacrifice, his qiyam, his stand, his jihad, his contribution for saving and preserving the mission of all Anbiya from Adam until Khatam Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. A qiyam and a stand that if it was not this stand and this qiyam, today Islam would be found only in the history books and only in the memories of those generations that who have passed away. Islam wouldn't survive, and today whatever we have as Muslims, whether Sunni or Shia, none of this would exist. Whatever we have today, it is because of that stand, that qiyam, and that sacrifice of our Imam. That's why it is very essential to keep the memories of Karbala and the qiyam of Imam Hussain alive. Unfortunately, the majority of Muslim Ummah, because of their own issues and their own problems, decided to not talk about Karbala. This is their official position. It's not an incident, it is the considered position. It is a position which was taken officially by their first those so-called khulafa, and then those fuqaha and scholars that who were on the side of government, that they are not going to talk about this incident of Karbala. I have mentioned in my previous khutbah, I am just trying to connect you with that discussion. Even on the day of Ashura, if you will attend their khutbah of Jum'ah or any gathering, or if you go to their schools or their institutions, they will not talk about the Ashura, the incident of Ashura, meaning this tragedy of Karbala. Instead, they will only talk about the merits of fasting on the day of Ashura. That's the only thing what they are going to talk about. But what happened on the day of Ashura on the plains of Karbala with the grandson of Prophet, they are not going to talk about it. And sometimes they have mentioned the reasons also, because you can't hide what is in your heart. It comes out sometime on your tongue or on your pen. They believe that it was a blunder, and they will get embarrassed. It's something that it doesn't bring good name to Muslims. It doesn't bring a good name to the Ummah. And it is also something that when people will talk about it, they will have further questions. Definitely they will ask that how come this reckless, this criminal ended up sitting in the seat of Prophet? How come he became Khalifa? Did he do any coup and he just usurped this power by a coup, a military coup? Or was he appointed as Khalifatul Muslimin? So very natural question people will ask. What answer you are going to give them when you will tell them that no, he was appointed by his father? So immediately the attention will be now to the father, what kind of father and what kind of Muslim he was. That knowingly he is appointing this kind of person as Khalifatul Muslimin. So the criticism from Yazid will now move to his father. And to them he is a companion. And for their reasons, their denominational reasons, they have made a defense. And the defense says that no one can criticize or question or talk negatively about any companion of Prophet. Because when even one companion got kind of criticized or questioned, then people will feel the liberty that they will start talking about the other companion, and then other companion, and then other companion. And companions were so many, and what they did, they know better than even us. So it will become indefensible. They won't be able to defend it. So they sat down. Over the period, they came up with this conclusion or this defense that the best thing is to build a wall and give the amnesty to all the companions. And there is no distinction of their character, their contribution, what they did, who they were, what is their life, what is their contribution. Just because they are companion, nobody is going to talk. So, if you will talk about Yazid, the discussion will reach to his father, the one who had appointed him, the one who had raised him, the one who had facilitated Muawiyah. And then when you will get into the Muawiyah's legacy is also not that good. Muawiyah was also a man whose life was full of those scandals and full of those challenges and full of those crimes. And you cannot hide the history. So when people will know that who the Muawiyah was, now the genuine question and natural question would be that how this son of Abu Sufyan, all of a sudden, he becomes that powerful in the Islamic government and he is appointed as a governor in Syria. So who appointed Muawiyah? So, no, the man who had appointed him as a governor in Syria and kept him there for a long time, and had double standards. His way of dealing with other governors was much different than the way he always dealt with Muawiyah. He always turned the blind eye to Muawiyah. Muawiyah was a man who never abided with the code which government or with the Islamic government had. He built palace. None of the other governors had built any palace until that time. He was the only one who built palace. He was the one who indulged in so many activities which were not considered Islamic. Later on, when he became from governor to an absolute dictator, so-called Khalifatul Muslimin, for those 20 years, or even before that in the time of Amirul Mu'mineen, he came and he fought Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. Instead of giving bay'ah and listening to a Khalifa Rashid, so he opposed him and he waged war. The Battle of Siffin, ugly war from his side. So, and many other things. And then what he did after the Shahadat of Amirul Mu'mineen and after Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salatu wasalam, when he was out of power, then the way how he dealt with the companions of Amirul Mu'mineen and the companions of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba, and he started this tradition of abusing Amirul Mu'mineen during these khutbas of Jumu'ah. This curse which today they have a big problem with us, that why do we curse? The companions, they started this business of cursing, and Muawiyah is the founder of that he started cursing Amirul Mu'mineen from the members of Friday prayer. And also it became a routine matter every week, and meaning he martyred literally the most pious people of his time, most pious people and those followers of Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib and his companions. So a man with that ugly character, how you are going to defend him other than just saying, oh, he was a companion of Prophet, and because he was companion of Prophet, so we are not entitled to talk against him, we can't criticize him, we can't talk about him. So this only companion, but meaning this is man-made rule. You made it purposely to put everything under rug, and this rug is the companionship. So the issue is that why they don't want to talk about Imam Hussain and Karbala, because this discussion will reach to Muawiyah, and discussion of Muawiyah will reach to those senior guys who had brought him in power. So this is a scheme, this is a plan, and they wanted to just bury the memories of Karbala in the sands of Karbala. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had his own plans, and these enemies of Ahlul Bayt, when they took the women and children of Imam Hussain as prisoners of war, and they took them to the cities of like Kufa and then Sham, and in between there were so many other cities, and they paraded them as their prisoners of war, and they tried to humiliate them, and they dealt with them in the most cruel way and most disrespectful way. So it had its impact. Yes, people were not able to stand with the these ladies and children, and they were afraid of the power of the government, and they were afraid of the brutality of the government, but in their heart they felt bad about it. Other than those few Khawarij or few Nawasib and those people that who had the animosity toward the family of Rasulullah, the masses didn't like it and they felt bad about it. So finally what happened, that these prisoners of war, these women who were, many of them were widows or mothers of martyrs or sisters of martyrs or daughters of martyrs and orphans, they brought them all into the courts of governor and the court of so-called this Khalifa in Kufa and Sham. Our fourth Imam, Ali ibn al-Husayn Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam, was in chains and he had high fever, he was sick. On top of that, he had seen all this bloodshed, and now he has all these ladies and children with him, going city by city in that situation. So that was a killing experience. We always say that Imam Hussain and his companions who were martyrs in Karbala, they died once. And Imam Zainul Abidin died almost at every step of his way. He experienced that pain and that shahadat almost on every intersection and in every street and in every city. Most painful experience. And then in Kufa, situation was little different, because Kufis, when they found out what we read in the books, they didn't bother much these ladies and children in the streets of Kufa. They were embarrassed and they themselves were kind of shedding tears and feeling kind of in regret. And they were very much embarrassed. So the only difficulty which these prisoners they faced, that was in the court of Ibn Ziyad. When Ibn Ziyad himself and his companions and the court people, they spoke in a very crucial way with ladies and children. But in streets and intersections, mostly the people of Kufa, they knew who they were. And they knew that they missed the opportunity and they are the one that who should be blamed. So they were terrified. But in contrast to that, when ladies and children of Ahlul Bayt arrived in Syria, it was a different situation. Syrians were celebrating. The people in Syria were mocking. They were disrespecting these ladies and children. They were the one that who were throwing different things on these ladies and children. So much so that we have riwayat that even some of them were throwing some fire, pieces of fire, objects which were burning, and stones. And worse than everything, they were cursing. They were celebrating. So this experience of Sham was so painful that once when our fourth Imam was asked, Mawla, where did you, I know all of that was very painful, but where did you feel that it was too much? Most painful experience, when and where? Our Imam cried and he said, Asham, Asham, Asham. It was too much. what has happened to these ladies and children in the entry on for the Syria, in the streets, in the court. It made, yes, initially Syrians to celebrate, but my brothers and sisters, the mazlumiyat of these ladies and children was such that which actually had a great impact even on the people in street in Syria and in court. And when Sayyida Sajjad spoke to them and gave khutbah, and Sayyida Zainab Salamullah alayha, she spoke very eloquently and gave the khutbah and introduced themselves, who they are and who this Yazid is and who his father and grandmother were. It took only those 2 khutbahs, 2 sermons, 2 speeches of Imam Sajjad and Sayyida Zainab, and Yazid was biting his nails. Biting his nails. That dictator is now in sweat and is regretting that why did he bring them here. So these ladies, these children, they opened the eyes of even their enemies. And of course Yazid, when he saw, he was a politician. I mentioned last time, government, a very big government, had intelligence, had spies, had eyes and ears in the public. Immediately found out that it was a terrible mistake. It is something which he cannot handle. So he changes his face and he starts now blaming Ibn Ziyad. And he says that this is all what Ibn Ziyad did. If I was there, if Hussein was here, I wouldn't do this, I wouldn't do that. All that kind of political talk, that kind of statement. And this is what these scholars in this day and age, and even in past, the Sunni scholars, they use this. They say, oh, when Yazid was not part of this decision, Yazid didn't know what was happening in Karbala. And when he found out, then he regretted and he became so nice and so good and so kind. So that is, again, they try to make something from something which doesn't exist. They build a big building on that. It's baseless. Yazid, even if he didn't know when this was happening, but now he knows, he got the news that Imam Hussein is martyred and ladies and children are taken as prisoners. Now he knows. So why he is bringing them in this state and in this condition, city by city, to Syria? Why they are still in chains and without those maknas and chadars? And then why they are being paraded in those cities, and why this city was decorated and the celebrations were being done in the city of Damascus in Sham when these ladies and children were coming in. Yazid didn't learn about this, what had happened in Karbala, only when ladies and children were standing in front of him. He got the news within a week. Within a week, he got the news. There was a system of mail and sending the messages and informing the government or leaders or whatever. He got that information. So what action he took against Ibn Ziyad? It was not a small thing. It was not a small kind of incident. murdering and killing the grandson of Prophet, the only grandson of the Prophet at that time, who is not only a grandson, but he is also, by your standards, he is companion. You are so much concerned about companionship. He is companion and he is grandson. Innocently, he gets killed there. What action Yazid took against Ibn Ziyad, Umar Saad, or all these other killers? And why he agreed that they should be brought into Sham in this way, in this condition, and why this whole celebration was going on in the streets and in his own court of Syria. And then what action he took even after this? After this, did he fire Ibn Ziyad? Did he fire Umar Saad? Did he fire any other individual? Any qasas? They were waging wars for one man, Usman, that he got killed innocently, and we have to now ask Ali to kill all those killers, otherwise we are not going to give bayat, and they fought the wars like Siffin. So now what happened? Here 72 people were martyred in Karbala. Where is qasas? What did you do? Did you bring these killers to the justice? Nothing. So there is no defense for Yazid. No one can come here and say, oh, Yazid was innocent, he was not part of it, or he was not happy about it, or he didn't agree to it. It is totally something which they cannot defend. That's why the policy is don't talk about it. Just bury it. Just keep it under rug. Move on, as governments always make blunders, and then they use their power and they use their media and use their influence to just divert the attention of masses, and they don't want people to talk about it or to know about it. So that's one thing that we need to keep in mind, and we need to know the history very well. We need to know with references. We need, each one of us should be a defender, each one of us should be a debater, each one of us should have good information, the first-hand information about this tragedy of Karbala. And then whenever we find the opportunity, we should be able to narrate it, we should be able to talk about it, we should be able to clarify when they mix up the facts. We should have, we are, after all, we are commemorating the tragedy of Karbala from last 1400 years. 1400 years, and all of us, we have spent countless hours of attending the majalis and azadari, listening the majalis and listening the speeches, organizing these majalis and these speeches. So we should know the crux of matter, we should know the details of it, we should know the entire story, the whole story, and we should be able to, all of us should be able to narrate, all of us should be able to talk about it, all of us should be able to write about it, all of us should be able to, for rebuttal, when they come up with these different kind of cover-ups. So that is something that all of us should be master of it. Only coming and listening and then going back and then saying, Maulana ne badi achhi taqreer kar di, Maulana mashallah spoke very well, and if somebody asks, what did he say? I don't remember the details what he was saying, but it was really amazing speech. It was good speech, but I don't remember anything. Then it's useless. We need to remember. We need to take notes. We need to read, because with reading you will try to understand. always make some good collections of those books written about this tragedy of Karbala, the history of Karbala. Have some collections of books, good speeches, good materials, good articles. Read them at least every year during the Muharram and Safar. Invest some time in reading at your own while you are attending the majalis and listening. Listening gives you only head or tail. It doesn't give you the whole thing. But if you want to get the head and tail and the all details, then you have to read it. When you will read it, then you will understand and you will have all the facts in your hand. So with that, I will conclude today's khutbah that why they don't talk about it. They are not going to talk about it, but it is our duty and our responsibility to talk about it. It is our duty and our responsibility to talk about it, to keep exposing them, and to keep presenting this good side of Karbala. Karbala has two sides. One is very ugly and one is very beautiful. As every story has two sides. Our side of story, the Hussein's side of story, the Zainab's side of story is beautiful. We are not ashamed. We are not embarrassed. Matter of fact, we are proud. With pride, we talk about Karbala because we are with Imam Hussain. The picture of this story or the side of this story, this side is beautiful. Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. It's a jameel story, it's a beautiful story, inspiring story, motivating story, uplifting story, educational story. So we should be master of it, we should talk about it. And whenever we find opportunity, we should talk about it. They should be embarrassed. They should be humiliated. Their side of story is ugly. Their side of story is bad. And that's why they cannot talk about Karbala. That's why they are hiding it. That's why they don't want to talk about it. So, I'm concluding here that my brothers and sisters, make some good collections, buy those good books, collect those good articles, and read and discuss these things with your families, with your children, with your friends. Particularly in these 2 months of Muharram and Safar, we should have a revision. We should get the chance to again go through the details and these discussions. And then, inshallah, whenever we find opportunity, we need to keep educating the ummah. This is something which is as amanat, it is our heritage, it is our responsibility, and we have to do it. Recite a salawat. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحليم الكريم غافر الذنب وقابل التوب وهو الغفور الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. صل على محمد وآل محمد. Dear brothers and sisters, I don't have time, but since it is relevant to what I spoke in first khutbah, I will make this comment very briefly. When we are talking about knowing the history and the facts of Karbala and then being able to narrate it, I will emphasize that we are living in western part of the world where language is English. We need to now switch into the English and try to be the people that who are investing our time, our resources, our efforts to have the poetry and the writings and salams and marsiyas and nohas in English as much as possible. That is now our duty. May Allah bless Mir Anis and Mir Dabir and all those great poets that who put the great work in Urdu back home in India and Pakistan. But they also broke away from their ancestors who were used to recite Salam, Noha and Marsiya in Farsi and in Arabic. Mir Anis and Mir Dabir, their ancestors were not used to have this azadari in Urdu. They came from Iran and Iraq and from those countries, and they were used to do. Even today there are some Farsi nohas in Karachi, and whenever I go in Khoja communities, I still hear some of those old Farsi nohas. Shamiya Bastande Bazue Zainabo Kulsumra. I still hear even till today, wherever I go in Khoja community, during the Muharram, they have this typical noha in Farsi. So nohas and marsiyas and salams were all in Farsi and in Arabic. But Mir Anis and Mir Dabir and these people, they became the pioneers of Urdu soz and salam and marsiya and noha in India and Pakistan. Pakistan came later in wujud, but they realized that they need to now do it in Urdu. We are living in a different part of the world. Our children, their friends and outside masses, particularly even when sometime we go in downtowns, we have Punjabi nohas and Saraiki nohas and Urdu nohas, and reading in front of all those whites and blacks around us. Many of our own Arab and Irani brothers, they are with us, but they don't understand what we are talking about. Our children have talent. We should encourage them. We should provide them the chance, and we should help them to come up with this poetry in English. Alhamdulillah, we have some talent in our community. We have seen it. We just need to give them more space. We need to give them more time. We need to give them chance. About 35 years when people like me started reciting majalis in English, people were used to say, how can you recite majlis in English? You are against azadari. You must want to destroy this institution of azadari. That's why you are reciting majalis in English. You are dushman-e Hazrat Zahra. You are dushman-e Imam Hussain, because you are reciting these majalis in English. We started it 35 years, 40 years ago. Just within 40 years, now, maybe I have not become the star, because that was not my purpose, or that was not my aim. I was a man with a different kind of aims in my life. But within 40 years, now you know that we have how eloquent speakers we have in English. Just look at your own Maulana Sayyid Sulaiman. Is he less than any Urdu speaker or Urdu Zakir or Urdu Khatib? Sheikh Rizwan sitting in front of us. And many of these crowd puller speakers who are imported from England, and they come from England with the English accent, which people love. So All of them in last 30 years. Urdu Zakiri reached to the level of Rashid Turabi within about 150 years or 200 years. We have reached to that point within 30 years. Within 30 years or 40 years, our English Zakiri has reached to that level. So my brothers and sisters, I know when there is Urdu, when there is English poetry, when there is English Marsiya, when there is English Noha, people don't feel that, meaning how should I do matam and how should I cry and how should I do this and how should I do that. My brothers and sisters, the same case was in with Urdu. But as Urdu became the popular and it took its place, English will also do that. So that is my reminder, that is my request. I think all of us, we should look into it. Recite salawat. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين علي بن أبي طالب وعلى سيدة نساء العالمين فاطمة الزهراء وعلى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة وعلى علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي. اللهم صل على مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان وعلى آبائه الكرام اتصل الليالي والأيام. أما بعد، فقال الله تبارك وتعالى: توبوا إلى الله توبة نصوحا وعسى ربكم أن يكفر عن سيئاتكم ويدخلكم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار. وقال الله تبارك وتعالى أيضا: إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله.